Welcome to this edition of Tuesday Talks with Twyla. We are just over a week out from the Christmas holiday, and today I want to talk about mental clutter. So I went back because last year around this time, I talked about some tools and tactics that we can put in place to help us prepare for the holidays. And it's it's really taking this concept of all of the things that are just floating around in our head, all of the mental clutter that seems like we accumulate this time of year. And so I want to use the tactics for the work that you'll do to prepare for all of the tasks you need to complete before the holidays. But I also want us to use these tools to implement for the other mental clutter. Because this time of year is when it is very common for us to accumulate more like sensitive thoughts, more sensitive feelings. We maybe have some reminiscence, we have some grief that comes up. There's a lot of different things that the holidays can bring up for us. And if we don't know what to do with that and we don't know how to process it or how to handle it, it becomes part of all of that mental clutter. And it really weighs us down. It really taps our energy. And because it can happen slowly and it's just one more thing and one more thing, the amount of clutter slowly grows and the amount of energy it takes slowly grows. So we don't realize it. We don't just wake up one day, and sometimes this can happen as well, but usually we don't just wake up one day and just go, whoa, like all of a sudden we just notice it because it's been slowly increasing. And sometimes we do hit that breaking point where we wake up and we're like, whoa, this is too much. I can't do this. And we feel like we've hit a breaking point. So definitely we want to manage this before we get to our breaking point. So whether you don't even realize because you're just in that slowly increasing mode, or you have felt like you're running up against your limit, your max, you're tapped out. These tools you can implement right now to feel the relief, and then also use these tools just ongoing. Because not just around the holidays do we accumulate more sensitive feelings or emotions or have grief kind of come out of nowhere. It can happen any time of the year. So these tools are universal. These tools you can apply anytime. And honestly, I would recommend that you practice them regularly, that they just become part of either your regular journaling process or your regular check-in process or your regular self-reflection process. Because it's just really good work to kind of maintain our mindset, our mental status, our like health of our mind and body and energy, right? Because they go hand in hand. So the first thing that we want to do, and this is something that you can just do right now, or something that you can do, this can be the actual exercise that you do once a week or every day, however often you journal or spend some time doing some self-care. But we want to start with just finding out what all's in there. And if you're like me, sometimes this can be challenging. So I try to give myself space to do this exercise. The recommendation is that you grab your notebook or your journal and you sit down and you just try to get everything out and onto the paper. And that is an excellent exercise. But sometimes I struggle with stuff coming up. It's almost like when I get ready to access it all, it just all kind of disappears. And a lot of times I'll be like, there's nothing. I'll just feel like my mind just went blank. And so I really have to be creative with the process. And so for me, sometimes what that looks like is today is Tuesday, right? I just start writing something that I can write. Just, anything just to kind of get my like brain gears moving, today is Tuesday. It's cloudy outside. It's cold outside. It's nice outside, right? I'm having a good day. I'm feeling this way, right? And I just kind of start with maybe some low-hanging fruit of things that I can just, I can just easily reflect on and express and write down. So, however that is for you. And then sometimes I need to just put the pen down and distance myself from that part of the process. Maybe just take a couple of deep breaths and, just kind of settle into the moment and reconnect with my body and myself in the moment. And if you've ever done any mindfulness exercises, this can look like, taking a few deep breaths, closing your eyes and taking a few deep breaths. And then it can be just recognizing the sensation of wherever you're seated, your body that's touching the sofa cushion, that's touching the chair cushion, that's leaning up against the chair, that's hands resting on the paper, that the way the pen feels in your hand, and the air against your skin, or if there's a fan blowing, and you just notice as much as you can about your body. And what you're doing in that moment is really just connecting with yourself and no judgment, just curiosity. And you're really just being mindful with yourself in that moment. So that can be part of the process of trying to get the information out and onto paper and just kind of connecting with yourself in the moment and see if that kind of elevates the experience of journaling or kind of mind dumping or doing a thought download, getting everything out of your mind and onto the paper. The process of kind of checking in or doing the intermittent self-reflection, this one I really want to recommend be something that you intentionally decide that you'll build into a routine. And the reason I say that is because today, if you do this exercise, or if you set time aside to sit down and do all of the steps in this exercise, the clutter will come back. Or there might be something that you didn't process through, or something that didn't even come to the surface that came to your awareness. And so more clutter will accumulate, right? If it's been accumulating over time and it continues to accumulate, you might have another kind of pile to work through, or you just have, one thing here or there. But when you make an intention to check in and assess, like, how much mental clutter do I have today? Or how am I feeling today? And they can be just really simple check-ins. They don't have to be a long, elaborate, okay, I've got to, dedicate this much time and I have to do a full thought download and I have to go through all of these steps. It doesn't have to be that way. The check-in can just be these intermittent, like literally like, hey, how are you doing? Right? Like a check-in would be, like a well check, right? How are you doing? What are you thinking about right now? How am I feeling right now? And just noticing, right? Just doing the check-in and becoming aware of whatever that is that's going on for you. How much mental clutter do I have today? What all is floating around in my head today? Right? And the idea of going through all the steps in the exercise is having all of the pieces, and then you can maybe jump in and be like, okay, I need to do this with this stuff right now, or I need to do this step with this stuff right now. And you'll know the whole process, but you can jump in if whatever's needed in the moment is maybe just this step or just that step, right? And so you'll have all of the steps, but you can check in regularly to make sure that you're basically maintaining, right? If you do this whole exercise and you've kind of cleared the clutter and you've kind of like cleaned out the closet, right? And you just don't ever look back in the closet, you don't know if there's been more accumulated. You don't know if there's more mess there. You don't know if there's more that needs to be worked through. So the first part of the process is that awareness step, the big thought download, the big brain dump, the big kind of clean the clutter, dump out the junk drawer, get it all out on paper. And then there's the practice of the intermittent, checking in and seeing, like, how are we doing today? How is it going? And then once we have everything captured and you feel like you've got, kind of everything, you've become aware of it, you've kind of, thought through it, and you've got it all captured on your paper. Then we want to go through and categorize. So it helps to take kind of this messy pile. And if you've ever watched any of like the organizing shows or the declutter or the cleaning, once you have your pile, then you go through and you sort it, right? And so we want to sort all of the information, all of the thoughts that you have on the paper, and then we categorize them. So these are all of my feelings. These are all of maybe just my thoughts. And these are all of the things I need to do. These are all of the things I need to buy. These are all of the treats that I want to bake for the holidays, right? You might have lots of different things come up. And as you look through, you'll see where you can group things that are similar, and that will help you organize and categorize all of the information. And then you can take it, and what I like to do is colored highlighters and go through and highlight all of the things that would go on this list. So these are all the things that I have to get done around the house before company comes on Friday. And these are all of the things that I need to buy at the store before company comes on Friday. And these are all of the Christmas gifts that I need to finish getting ordered. And maybe this one needs ordered, this one needs wrapped, right? These are all of those types of things. And once you categorize them, you take your whole page and list of stuff, all of the mind clutter, and you organize it into categories, and then you put them on lists. And just that alone is a process that cleans the clutter, right? It's organizing all of the information. So you don't have to look through or, kind of like fumble through all of this clutter to find out all of the things that you need to go buy at the store. You have it all organized. And like when I started, I said that you might have some emotions, you might have some thoughts and feelings that come out as you're dumping out all of this mind clutter. And those are the things that we want to make sure that we take some time with. Because the holidays can be one of those times where we have like more grief that just sometimes feels like it comes out of nowhere. We just are more sensitive to things, so we have just more sensitive emotions. We might have more thoughts and feelings that are more sensitive. And we don't want to ignore those. We don't want to just dump them on the paper and then build our list of all of these things to do and ignore that. There is something to do with those as well. And it doesn't have to be this very heavy, very like difficult process to go through those emotions and those thoughts, but we don't want to ignore them. And so, whatever you're comfortable with, the process for these are to connect with them and allow that connection, the mind-body connection. Read through them, connect with the emotion. What does it feel like? Where do I feel it in my body? Describe it, give it a color. Really just sit with it for a little while. That doesn't mean you sit with it all day. It doesn't mean that you have to abandon everything else because you're going to have this huge cry fest. It doesn't have to be anything more than what you're comfortable with. But just don't ignore them. Don't let them be something that you're just like shoving under the rug or throwing back in the closet and kind of turning your back on. They're there for a reason. They need your attention. And your attention can just be the awareness of them, the mindfulness connection to them, allowing them in the body, and really just getting curious and understanding what is the thought and feeling that I'm having here about this. And just allow it to sit there for just a little while and then move on, right? We don't have to just stay with it. We don't have to just kind of wallow in the emotion. We can just notice that it's there, allow it in the body, and let it go. And that is one of the categories that I want us to consider when we look through our list. Are there some thoughts and feelings that we want to let go of? Maybe it's some feelings that we have to have everything perfect, that I've got to create the perfect holiday, or I have all these unrealistic expectations. I have all of these kind of like unreasonable expectations really from others, or maybe they're self-imposed. Maybe we feel like we should do this because we always have, or we feel like it's kind of expected because, maybe we are carrying the baton from a tradition that, our parents or a more distant relative did. And so that person's gone now. And so we just, we feel like it's important to do that. We really want to analyze those and decide again, do we really want to do this? If you never did it again and nobody noticed, is it something that you want to do for you? Not because you think they want it, not because you think they should want it, right? I think sometimes that's we fall into that trap, right? Because we wanted it mostly because it reminded us of maybe our childhood, or we have the fond memories of the person that did that. And our children just don't have that connection to it, right? They know that we're doing it because of our connection to it, but they don't feel that connection because it really wasn't genuine to us anyways. We were doing it because of them. So really just take the opportunity to look through those types of things and decide again, is this something that I want to keep doing? And love your reasons. It's got to be for you. And even if it's like the kids love this, that's for you, because if you light up because they light up, that's for you. So just make sure that you're really tapping in and getting curious about it and aligning and loving your reasons. And if there's things that you want to let go, this is the time to just be intentional. So we don't want to just have it be something that we're like, again, avoiding or pushing under the rug, or just like we're not going to address it. We want to be intentional about letting it go. We want to imagine releasing. Imagine the letting go of the thing, that we're done with that. We're not holding on to that anymore. We're not doing that or connecting or feeling the pressure of whatever that is for you, but be intentional about just letting it go and deciding, being intentional, and then moving on, right? Not wallowing in it, not feeling bad about it, right? We just make the decision and then we are intentional about letting it go and releasing it. And then we move on, right? And that's a combination of the mental and physical process of the letting go and clearing some of that mental clutter. Beautiful. Okay, so the last part of this process, you have your lists, you've kind of let go of things, you've processed some emotions, but you have your lists, you have your categories, and you have your lists. And then now what I like to do is we've really kind of cleared the clutter at this point, right? But we kind of still have the clutter, right? It's kind of like if you've cleaned out the closet and you've pulled everything out, now it's all in the room, and then you've put it into piles, right? You haven't cleared the clutter, you've just moved it and you've organized it, but now we really want to clear it out. So what we do with these lists now is what I like to add in this extra step where we go through and we figure out how much time it's going to take to complete the things that need to get done. And if there's things that require multiple steps, we can first go through and be like, okay, that's got multiple steps, but it's going to probably, the whole thing's going to take me an hour, right? And so for the ones that we can just go through and figure that out, we can jot down how long are those things going to take. And if we're not sure, because we need to do the process of figuring out all of the steps that it'll take to complete the thing, and then we'll know about how much time it'll take, that's okay. So you can do it either way. Go through and figure out the time for everything, and right then and there, figure out all the steps to figure out the time, or just go through and do all of the time and then go back to the bigger ones and draw out the list and then create the time. But we want to know, how long is it going to take for all of these things to get completed? Because what we're going to do with that time then is we're going to put it on our calendar. And there's a couple of tricks to this. First of all, you already know, like if it takes a half an hour, we need to find a half an hour to schedule doing this thing. And it needs to be done by Friday when company comes, right? And so today's Tuesday. So between Tuesday and Friday, I have to find a 30-minute block to do this thing, right? And I, look at my calendar and I figure out, where does it fit? Where's a good place to, calendar this, to plan to do it, right? And then we get that scheduled on our calendar. And at that time, that's when we're going to do the thing. And we go through and we do that with everything on the lists, right? All the lists, all the things that's got to be done and when they need to be done by. And we know, this one has to be done by Friday, but that one doesn't have to be done until the next Friday, right? And so we can build out all of those lists and the times and the schedule and the calendar, and we build it all out and we put it all out in the calendar. And as you're going through, right, you're marking them off. So you've got everything on this list scheduled, you got everything on this list scheduled, and this is just a grocery list. So this whole list will get done in an hour on, Wednesday night. And then everything is planned and scheduled. Now, here's the other trick to this. When it's Wednesday night and it's time to go to the store, you're not going to want to. You're just not going to want to. Your human brain's going to be like, yeah, but it's warm and cozy on the couch and you got your fresh coffee. And why would you want to go back outside to the grocery store where it's very hectic, lots of people, and go buy groceries? Like, you don't want to do that. And that might be, excuse me, kind of just an extreme example, right? But most of the time, when we have something scheduled, our brain will offer an alternative to completing the task. And it'll just seem innocent. It'll just seem kind of subtle sometimes. But the reality is our brain likes efficient, it likes to conserve energy, and it likes to stay safe. So it doesn't want to do the things. So you'll have to override that in the moment. We just have to know we're not going to feel like doing it and we have to do it anyways. So the trick here is to stay committed to the calendar. Stay committed to your schedule, stay committed to yourself to do the thing. And what that can look like is I just don't even give myself the chance to renegotiate. I just know that at this time, I'm going to go do this thing. And I don't give it any more thought than that. And I keep that commitment to myself. Because if you start like, okay, I push that off, and then where do I fit that in the rest of the time, right? If it's between Tuesday and Friday that I have to complete this and I don't complete it during this time block, now I got to look at my calendar. Where am I going to juggle this in? And the beauty about keeping the commitment to ourselves is it builds that self-confidence. It builds that integrity with ourselves that we know that we've got our own back. We are committed to ourselves and we will do the thing. And that's huge because then it'll just get easier and easier to do the things that are scheduled and calendared, and it just gets easier because we just know we're not going to negotiate, we're not going to argue, we're not going to push it off. It's scheduled, it's calendared, we're going to do the thing, honor our calendar at all costs, right? Okay, so those are the steps. And then all the way through execution, right? So you start with this mind clutter that has accumulated, or maybe just you slowly notice, or all of a sudden you're like, whoa, right? Like it's a lot. And you start with unloading everything, doing the mind dump, the brain dump, the thought downloading, getting everything down onto paper. And then you categorize what you found. You can do highlighters, you can circle, you can, do it however you want, but you go through the whole list and you categorize everything, and then you sort it and organize it onto individual lists by category. And at that same time, you'll look through and you'll do any of the emotional work that needs to be done, any of the releasing of things that need to be done. You'll do that as you go through and categorize and organize your list. And then once you have your list, you'll go through and figure out how much time each of these things will take to complete. And if they have multiple steps, you'll go through and figure out the steps so that you can figure out how much time that thing will take to complete. And then you'll go through and calendar all of it. Get it all scheduled on your calendar, get it all calendared, scheduled, and planned out. And then execute. You'll just complete everything that's on there. And then the ongoing work here is that intentional check-in. What has come up since the last time you did this process? And, what kind of mental clutter have I accumulated? And maybe it's just, a couple of things that you need to add to your to-do list. And maybe it's just the accumulation of some, maybe some sensitive emotions or some things that have come up that have just been kind of, swirling around. And any of that just is floating in there, that is coming up, that we can just take the opportunity to check in, see what all's there, and then process through it. Maybe process the emotions, maybe spend some time connecting with it and being curious about it and figuring it out. And then maybe it's some things that we need to just release and let go. And implementing that as an intentional process. So maybe just this one, big process, and then intermittently, every couple of days or every few days or once a week, we just check in. How much mental clutter have I accumulated? What's going on in my mind today? And again, I recommend that this is a regular exercise that you complete, maybe as part of your daily journaling or weekly journaling, or just some self-care or mindfulness that you exercise at whatever increment feels good for you. And I think I just want to caution that, like, sometimes, and I fall into this trap, it's like, okay, I do like the big exercise, and then it's like, whew, right? Like you just feel lighter and you feel like, the clutter is cleared. You have the clarity, you have the organized schedule, you have kind of everything just, organized. And then things are good, right, for a while. And then we don't check back in. And time goes longer than what it should before we check back in because we're feeling so good, right? Like I said, like if this stuff kind of accumulates and you get to like this ramped up level and now you clear it all out and you're starting back down here again, you're going to slowly ramp back up. And so we don't want to wait too long to where we've got another pile. We kind of want to just check in regularly and maintain and just see like what's going on. And, maybe it's just a few minutes check-in, right? Maybe it's just a few minutes of the exercise and then we can move on instead of like waiting for it to get so big that it's this, more time-consuming process to go through all of these steps in the exercise. So it's completely up to you, obviously. The more you get into the practice of doing this, like I said, there might be just different things that pop up and you're like, oh, I need to do this with that kind of like clutter that we, notice or accumulate. It's like, oh, I got like three things swarming around here. I got to get this, laid out and organized. I got to get it in its place. I've got to get it like the awareness and the understanding and get it in its place and keep it organized, right? Like just, as an ongoing practice or process. And that's always available to us, right? So this is great to do right before the holidays here, and also a regular practice to implement in just always, just as a routine, as a regular self-care practice and process. So with that, I hope you are having an amazing, like, pre-holiday couple of weeks here. Next week will be the Tuesday before Christmas. Will be like, right, crunch time, just a few days, like a couple days, depends on if you do Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. And so it'll be Christmas week. And so it'll be right around the corner. It'll probably be very chaotic for all of us. Lots of things going on and lots of mental clutter that we can accumulate. So with that, I hope you have an amazing week and I will catch you next week.